Hello everyone and welcome to TPS 4x4 version 644 Introduction. This presentation is for people who are new to TPS, and I want to show you how to set up TPS for your students and how to enter data. Of course, those are the two necessary parts of TPS so that you can immediately begin to use TPS in your classrooms. You can see that we are on the data entry page. I'm going to go over a few of these tabs for those who are not familiar with Excel. That's what these are called, just like they would be if they were file folders, the tabs. And we'll start with the very left here. That's table of contents. Table of contents does exactly what you think it will do, which is to show a short description of each of the tabs that are in TPS. We're going to be focusing on data entry, setup, and setup 2. Those are the three tabs that are most important for getting started with TPS, but you'll note that there are a considerable number of tabs going to the right, and if I click on my scrolling button, you can see it goes even farther out. So all of these tabs are important. They all have different uses. For right now, I'm going to be, as I said, focusing on these tabs so that you can get up and running with TPS. Alright, let's go ahead and switch over to Setup. Setup is the place to type in 10 academic blocks for the students in your class. Now, if it's a self-contained classroom, most of the students will be sharing these same 10 academic blocks, but it's not necessary to have every student in TPS have the same academic blocks. But whatever you type here will be the default academic blocks for all your students, and then you can change them in data entry, and I'll show you how to do that. Here's a typical sequence of the day. You'll note that we do include lunch because the student can act inappropriately during lunch. We want to be able to capture that. These are not all academic blocks either. Lunch is not an academic block, and when there's recess, we don't normally consider that academic either. But that's the term that we use. We have to call them something, and so we call them academic blocks. Ideally, you want to use all 10 of these. And if you have too many academic blocks, then go ahead and put a couple of academic blocks together into a larger block if you can. Sometimes we don't follow this exact sequence for the day, and that's okay. So it's not as important that when you go into data entry, it's not that important that social studies always comes after breakfast. What is important is that you collect data during social studies whenever it occurs. So if the sequence of the day starts to change, go ahead and leave these academic blocks in their positions, like the third block and the fourth block and so forth, because it will help your data analysis later on. The teacher is, of course, obvious, and just in case is our favorite teacher. An additional evaluation name. This is a place where you can name the data column that you're going to be using for some other purpose, some purpose other than collecting data for behavioral interventions. I'm going to click on the data entry to show you where that's going to go. This is the column that you can put any kind of number in. Now your TPS data, which is the 3 increasing goals here, we're not using this 4th goal, and the 4 decreasing goals here. These areas require a 0, 1, 2, or 3, or an X, which I'll explain later. But this column right here can be used for any purpose, and any kind of number can go into it. You might want to monitor academic performance, and you might want to put in test scores once a week. You might want to use this for classroom management and have points or stars. Let's go ahead and use that. So I go back to setup, and I'm going to call that classroom points. And you'll note, of course, that When we go back to data entry, classroom points is now the name. And so during each of these academic blocks, I can put in how many classroom points the student has earned for each block, and it totals it here. Now if these are test scores, this total is not going to be so valuable to you, but it does total it in case you are using a classroom management program. Okay, let's go back to setup. We'll come back to more of this in just a few minutes. The level percent and the levels are another area that you can customize TPS. This is designed for classrooms that want to use classroom management in terms of increasing and decreasing target behaviors, and these percentages are going to establish different levels. So if a student had earned 80% of the available percentage points, he would get an A, and it would show up on the weekly sum report, which is right here. I'm going to click on that real quick just to show you what that would look like. So these are the percentages, and although we're getting a little bit off the target here, off the track, it's increasing minus decreasing, plus bonus minus infraction, or way to go points and infraction points, which I'm going to show you in a second. The total, well, in this case it was only 2% because he had such a high percentage of decreasing target behaviors. That was the level D. Let's go here to Phyllis Glass. You can see she earned 94% of her increasing targets, 5% of decreasing, so the difference was 89%, or an A. And this is a great way of showing for the week how a student is doing, and to make accessible Friday special programs and things like that. That will go over in another part of TPS training, but for right now I just wanted to show you where those numbers go. And you can change these percentages to anything that you want. You can make it 85%, and you can also change this to some other name if you wanted to call it fabulous, and you know, this you wanted to call it great, and you wanted to call this you know, keep trying. Of course, we run out of room if we use too many letters, and yeah, we got that too. So most teachers prefer just to go ahead and keep it simple with letter grades. And these codes right here are way to go percentage points and infraction percentage points. These spaces here give you a place to put the kinds of things that a student can do to get bonus points, the way to go points, and the infraction points, which would be penalty points. And although this again is a little bit more detail on TPS than I need to go into, when we go to the W sum, they would way to go points would add, and infraction points would subtract or minus for the weekly summary. Okay, so that's where that would go, and you can establish you can type in the kinds of things that would earn each of these kinds of percentage points, or if you want to, you can just type it on a separate piece of paper if this was going to become too lengthy. Okay, enough about that. More important is this part right here: academic blocks, teacher, and additional evaluation name. So then you've set up TPS in one important way. You've got your academic blocks and your teacher's name and how you're going to use that additional evaluation column, and then you're going to customize it for each student. Setup 2 is where you do that. Student 1, student 2, student 3 goes up to student 24. And here we have Pete Moss. Quality of work is the increasing target. Quantity and independence are the other increasing target behaviors. Decreasing target behaviors, or just decreasing behaviors. Verbal aggression and disruption. Physical aggression, refusal, transition problems. Transition problems is becoming a more popular decreasing target behavior because it helps us to focus on behavior that's occurring between the academic blocks. So this is a good thing to think about when you are setting up TPS. Are the problems during the academic blocks or getting to the next academic block? over the years, we have found lots of problems occur during transitions. So this has become a popular target behavior. Verbal aggression and physical aggression are also very popular. If we had to pick the top decreasing target behaviors, it would be that verbal aggression, physical aggression, and transition. And then for the increasing targets, this is a very popular sequence right here: quality, quantity, and independence. It really captures a great deal of information about how the student is doing. You could also have appropriate social behavior, follows directions, work completion, and so forth. And you would just type it in right there if you wanted to. Add another one. We can put displays, kindness. I'm just making that up as a fourth one. Usually appropriate social exchange would be capturing that. But whatever you want to type in, you just type it in the next row, and it would show up on the data entry. So let's go ahead and go over there. Data entry. Let's take a look at the organization right here. Each day is captured by this rectangle. I have no data for the first day of school, and there's a lot of information, of course, that you could put in here. Let's move it down to the next day. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to hide the ribbon just to give us a little bit more space. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay. Well, here, let's take a look at a couple things that we see. First, you have these hashtags, and the reason why they are there is because there are no numbers to calculate. So that's the display that you get when the numbers are not there as a result of, in this particular example, X's. You'll notice that it can also happen when there are no numbers at all. So all X's or all blanks will give you these hashtags, and I'll explain more about that in just a bit. You'll notice this blue box right here, phase change. The behavioral intervention plan begins with direct BCBA support. Okay, so that's the second day of school. I put in a phase change, and I'll show you what that does in a little bit. But it's important to note that TPS is always looking for those words, phase change. What is a phase change? Well, anytime you make a significant change in the intervention, or something happens that's of real importance to the student, parents get divorced, baby is born, medication change, something that's going to be important to show on daily graphs. That's what a phase change would be. And you can type anything you want after the phase change, but the words phase change is the key to drawing a vertical line on graphs. I'm just going to show you real quick. I'm going to go to graph G1, which is an important graph in TPS, and you'll see it draws these vertical lines wherever there's a phase change. And of course the phase change is listed up here, so you get to see what's going on for each student. Alright, back to data entry. You'll notice that we have spots for notes. Okay, and these notes are associated with academic blocks. So each academic block gets a line, a row, and you're going to put data for your increasing behaviors and data for your decreasing behaviors in that row. And you can also put notes. Okay, so we had some problems during math, as you can see here. What are these numbers? Well, these numbers correspond to the rating scale. A 0, a 1, a 2, or a 3. For 0, again, low, medium, or high amounts or intensity of behavior. A 1, 2, and a 3 do not refer to good, like a 3 is not better than a 2 in any overall sense. It is true for the increasing targets because we want to see 3. So a 3 is better than a 2 or a 1. So during, let's say, social studies here, we see that the quality of work was a 3. That means it was a high amount of work, a high quantity of work. So high quality of work, high amount of work, and a high amount of independence. There was no verbal aggression, no physical aggression, no refusal, but we did have some transition problems. How much? A low amount. So all of the desire is to see zeros on this side, meaning zero amount of the decreasing target behaviors, and we want to see threes over here for a high amount of the increasing target behaviors. Now you might be asking, how do we know what a 1, a 2, or a 3 represents? If you want to, you can establish a rubric for that purpose and actually put the details for what a 1 would refer in quality of work, or what would a 1 refer to for verbal aggression or disruption. So you, on a separate sheet of paper, type to your heart's content in providing that level of detail. And that's a good thing to do. In practice, I will note that most teachers know what a high amount of verbal aggression is, a medium amount, and a low amount, because those words are words that we have so much experience with. Now you'll note that I don't have a 5-point scale. We don't use a low, medium, medium, high thing, because then the differences between those categories would be very they would need to be narrowly defined, and it would be hard to label a particular episode in that way. Was it medium? Was it medium high? It's hard to know sometimes. But low, medium, or high are distinct, and it helps to inform your teachers, your aides, whatever, to calibrate their observations for sure using some kind of rubric. But in general, we find that the differences between 1, 2, or 3 are readily observable and easy to agree between teachers. Now, you'll note that we're not counting individual occurrences here. There's no tallies, there's no recording of time. We are simply evaluating the overall behavior during an academic block with regard to the behaviors listed above. In practice, with somewhere between 500,000 and 700,000 data points collected so far, this has proven to be a wonderful way to collect behaviorally meaningful data without having to count each occurrence. We just don't need to know that on a daily basis. Now, I will also note that TPS does come in a frequency version. In other words, there is a version of TPS that looks just like this, but you would be putting in actual counts of the target behaviors. For purposes here, for teachers to collect data for their interventions, that is far too much data collection. The rating system that the TPS 4x4 is using right here is plenty of resolution to evaluate and to monitor interventions, and that's why we use it. The other nice thing about this is you can evaluate it after the fact. After you get back to your classroom, you can say, now how did Pete do with his quality of work, quantity of work, and independence? You don't have to be recording it in real time like you would with frequency collection. Okay. You'll note now we also have these X's. Now, what I had done is put X's up here on the first day of school. And what that does is it puts X's all the way down till the end of the school year. Automatically puts in X's. I want to demonstrate this, and I'm going to go over to a student where or a slot where there's no data. So I'll just bring it up to the top. So let's say I had 3 increasing behaviors right here, and I wasn't going to use that 4th column, so I'm going to put an X there because I'm not going to use that column, right? Now look what it's doing. It's putting in X's down here as I type them, and it happens to capitalize them as it goes forward. So if I had put a capital X in, it would, which I'm going to do right now. If I put a capital X there, of course, it'll just continue with the capitals. And that's just a detail to explain why it changes. So as I put an X here, it puts an X over here as well automatically. Now I'm not typing that, it's going in automatically, and look what it's doing. It's Xing out all of the cells for the remainder of the school year. That way you don't have to keep entering X's for cells that you're not going to use. Well, what cells are we not going to use? Well, this column we're not going to use, and for breakfast we're not going to record quality of work. We're also not going to record independence. We're going to record the quantity of work, meaning how much breakfast did he eat. And we're not going to record data during computer lab for increasing target behaviors because the computer is going to do that. But we are going to continue to record decreasing target behaviors. Okay? Lunch is the same thing. We're not going to record any kind of increasing target behavior, but we are going to record decreasing target behaviors. Now what about these ends? These ends do something very similar to the X. The X, if you enter it, will TPS will continue that X in subsequent days. Here, day 26 and day 27, the X's continue down. But the ends do not. The ends are used just for that day to show that it's not available. X means we're not going to use those cells. N means not available. Why was it not available? Sent home early because he had been particularly bad. So these ends are entered to show that these data cells were not going to be used. Now alternatively, we could have just left these cells blank. The reason why we put ends in here is to show that we didn't forget to enter data. So ideally, we want something entered in every one of these cells, a number or an X or an N, so that way we know that we didn't forget to enter anything. Now TPS ignores the X's and the N's in these percentage calculations. So you could also just leave these cells blank if you wanted to. You have to decide the level of precision that you want in your data collection. Some schools and some behavior specialists and teachers, etc., want to see something in every cell, so that way we know that nothing was overlooked. But you should know that TPS will ignore blanks. These numbers will stay the same if I take those ends out. It does not change these percentages because TPS is only looking for numbers. So the ends are there as placeholders, in a sense, to tell me the reason that there are no data collected. So blanks or ends, you decide, but it's important to note that a good strategy is to have something in every cell, so that way there's not that question of what does the blank mean. Well, let's take a look at these percentages to show how TPS is summarizing the day. Let's see what we have here. We have 1, 2, 3 academic blocks available. The rest were not available because they're either X'd out or N'd out. And what was the percentage for the day that the student earned? 67%. The way that that is calculated is 3, 5, 6 rating points were earned, and that would be divided by 3, 6, 9 possible percentage points, or rating points, excuse me. So 6 points were collected for this day, and 9 points were available. In other words, what would the student's score have been if he had gotten a 3 in each of the available blocks? Well, he would have been able to get 9 points. Turns out he got 6 points. 6 divided by 9 times 100 is 67%, 66.66. And that's how these percentages are calculated. We want to see 100% on the increasing side. We want to see 0% on the decreasing side. Now, I'm going to scroll down. We've entered a lot of data here. Oh, I just overlooked a point right here. Let's see, I went, there it is. Absent. Okay, if a student is absent, don't enter any other information here. You can leave your X's because they are ignored. But if there are no numbers here for the entire day, TPS is going to just consider that as an absent day, and then you put the word absent there just to remind you that you didn't forget to enter data for that day. You don't need to put ends, you don't need to put anything over here. TPS knows If there are no numbers, the student was absent. You can put the word absent there, and that way it tells you what the reason was, that there was no data. All right, I want to go scroll down here to just some random day here, okay, where there's no data entered. Now let's see. We've got four decreasing targets, and we have 10 academic blocks, so that's 40 possible entries right here. And that would be plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So that would be 59 possible entries that I would need to put in every day. That's a lot of entries. If we had 10 students with 59 entries, that's 590 entries a day. Of course, I recognize the amount of work that takes. Even if we're not doing tallies, it's still a lot of entering of data. Well, TPS handles that in a very efficient way with the yellow box. So what happens is if I put a P in the yellow box for a perfect day, watch what happens. It's going to put all 3s for available data cells and all 0s for available data cells for the decreasing targets. All 3s, all 0s. Then what you do is you go in and make the changes that are necessary. So maybe during specials his quality of work was a 2, and maybe his independence was a 1, and maybe during ELA he got a 1 and a 2 or a 1, and maybe we had some verbal aggression there and some physical aggression and maybe some refusal, and we had a couple of transition problems. Okay, there you go. So the day has been done. It's entered. So and if the student had a good day, you wouldn't have to, meaning no decreasing target behaviors, you wouldn't have to enter anything over here. So the P enters a perfect day, and then you make the changes that are needed to be changed, which is typically far less than it would be if you had to enter all those numbers in from scratch. So the P is a really nice way to take advantage of some of the automation in TPS. Okay. That is pretty much it for data entry. I will put one more thing on this video regarding the notes. I'm just going to type some text. Let's get the caps off. I'm going to put some text. Now watch what's going to happen. I'm going to keep going to the right, and it's going to do this kind of disappear thing by this line. It's going to stop right there. Okay. The point that I'm making is you can type a lot more than will fit on this line if you wanted to type something during breakfast. But look what happens if you click on it. It shows up in what's called the formula bar, and you can type all the way to the end of the formula bar, which is a lot to type about one academic block. So in this version of TPS you get a lot more space. It won't show up here, but it will show up here. And I'm going to show you one other thing on TPS that's also brand new. Given that we're talking about these notes, sometimes it is convenient to print them out, and the way that you would do that would be to move using this arrow. You would move all the tabs to the right, and you would come up to the H1. And what the H1 does is it's going to take away all of the blanks that are in the notes, because there's often a lot of blanks, and it will put the date of each note, and it will tell you what academic block was listed during for that note, and it'll display the note. So and you can do that for any of the students by just clicking on their name, and it will update it accordingly. So that is a nice handy way to and you of course then go to print it by taking back your menus. Let's go and show tabs and commands. So you would then print that, and it is a wonderful way to have all your notes be displayed without all of the blanks that are going to be shown. I'm going back here. All these blanks will be cut out, and the point was that that very long note will be displayed as well. Let's go back to Pete Moss, which is the person we're of course looking at. And it must think just a moment, and as we go down, we can see there is that very long note, and we see the whole note that was typed on February 8th during breakfast, which is a really nice thing to be able to do, to print out all the notes without those spaces. Okay, well that kind of completes our overview of TPS. Let's bring it back to our favorite Pete Moss. TPS version 644 for the 2015-2016 school year. There are, of course, so many other things to talk about, including the data sheets, which I'm going to save for the next lesson. I will go over, and then in subsequent lessons, some of these graphs, and there's so much more to talk about, but we'll do it then. All right, so thanks so much for staying with me for the 30 minutes of this overview. I hope you enjoy using TPS. I hope you are able to use it successfully.